Hello and welcome to another episode of Whatever's Cool, the show where we talk about anything and everything that is cool in the world today. I am your host, Daniel Crow, and with me is Tim. How you going, brother?
Hey, I'm doing really well, man. Thanks again for setting up this little Zoom meeting. I mean, it's not the best way for us to have to do these podcasts, but unfortunately, it's the only way that we can do it. But always appreciate the contact.
So I was waiting for a joke. I don't know why.
No jokes. Just complimenting you. Take the compliment.
Oh, thank you. Don't know where to go with that one. So continue on from last week. We are up to Super Tuesday 2 of NXT. It is the return match for Adam Cole and Finn Balor to determine the new NXT World Heavyweight Champion. Boy, was it a bit of a doozy. Tim, talk us through.
Well, I mean, before we do get onto that, there was something that you mentioned to me offline about what you didn't like about last week, and it sounds like it might have been a minor thing, but it's something that I think is worth mentioning. You were saying to me that you didn't really like the fact that they didn't have a constant counter ticking down the time for the time remaining of last week's match.
Oh, it doesn't make sense. I mean, like, if you've got like the Royal Rumble that does it for 10 seconds, that's understandable. But when you've got any Iron Man match, none sort of comes to mind where they didn't have it on the screen. You gotta have that on there just to illustrate the seriousness of every minute counts, every second counts, and it didn't really have that feel in the last match.
Probably would have helped a bit more to have it there just to generate that sense of urgency, especially towards the end. But as we saw last week, the ending was a bit, well, shall we say it didn't generate that sort of edge of your seat feeling. So, you didn't really get a sense of the pace needs to quicken more and people need to start doing, hitting their finishers in order to start getting those pins.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't have that, the match is done. But at least we've now got this week. It gives us something else to talk about.
Exactly, but it did rub me the wrong way. I mean, I think if they did include that would have made me care about the match even more. I think, but look, it is what it is. Not every show, not every match can be always hitting it out of the ballpark, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's just little bits and pieces, that goes towards the presentation. I, for one, this is moving on to something that I also forgot to mention last week. I actually really miss Morrow. I think that, he's the voice of NXT and he's an amazing commentator, but unfortunately he's now resigned. So, yeah, filling in for him again this week, I think, is a guest commentator with Wade Barrett. It's very different without Morrow's energy there, and I'm definitely gonna miss that for every episode of NXT or any NXT takeover.
I think takeover is just not going to be the same without him on commentary. But at the same time, if you've never heard Wade Barrett on the mic, I'm not saying that in any way is he better than him, by all means, because he's not. But he is very entertaining, and he can, draw out the match as well. I mean, when he was doing stuff on the independents in the UK, I'm trying to remember the organisation. Watch Culture's Wrestling's organisation. I think they were called Defiant or Defiance. He was really good at doing that, and I think hopefully there'll be a breath of fresh air when he really hits his stride if they decide to keep him on NXT.
He wasn't too bad last week, and I mean he's back again this week. I'm not sure if I love the presentation of how each of the stars entered. So, this time we had Balor coming out first, and they did that whole thing where they presented the stats. So, it showed all, his height, weight, blah, blah, blah. And then, fun fact, mentions that he was the first Universal Champion.
Yeah.
I guess they sort of do this to give it like a prize fight sort of feel. After that, Cole comes out. But what I took more notice of was the fact that he entered without Undisputed Era again. So I thought as a way for him to come out, it sort of positions him more as, well, I don't really need my boys to back me up. I can do all this on my own. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's another way for them to because we know it's going to happen eventually, and I think it's going to happen probably in the next month or two that the Undisputed Era is going to get, defunct. I didn't like it because I loved the Undisputed Era, and I think not having them there, have a presence, it just felt very weak. But the biggest thing that I didn't like about the entrances is who's meant to be the face, who's meant to be the heel. There was never really anything from the way that they came out that sort of indicated which is which. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then even the crowd. I mean, because they've got wrestlers as the crowd, and they're just cheering. They're just cheering regardless.
Unlike last week when they were booing everybody.
I mean, they've got to simulate a crowd, which is kind of difficult. But yeah, like you said, you don't really get a feeling of who's the face in this match. And look, it's circumstance, and you can't really do much about it. They had to cobble this together. I was happy to just sort of think of them as both being sort of anti-heroes. I mean, Cole's sort of like, having a bit more of a face turn, especially with the fact that at the most recent takeover, he was up against Pat McAfee, and Pat McAfee just had the heel mode turned up to like 11.
Yeah.
So, this is the closest that I guess we get to a face, whereas Balor is just, he's all about trying to recapture the championship and, just being, running rampant over the competition and just being dominant whoever he's up against.
Can I just say, I love Finn Balor as a heel. He is so good. Like,
I don't think you're alone there. I was talking about this with my cousin, and as soon as the heel turn happened, he was like, "Dude, I'm so on board for this." And even the way that he did that. So it was he, Ciampa, and I mean, we're getting away from the match, but I mean, it was he, Ciampa, and Gargano in the ring, and then they're up against the Undisputed Era. Then he just does that Pele kick, and then he starts destroying Gargano. It was vicious. It was
perfect.
Yeah, it was very vicious, and I mean, it was as heel turns go, it's right up there.
Well, let's get stuck into it now, because otherwise, because that's a subject that we're going to be sitting here talking more about than the actual match, and that's what we're here for, and that's what the listeners are here for us to talk about the match.
Absolutely. All right. So look, I mean, once the match gets underway, look, it's very slow at the beginning. I mean, it's a very measured pace. I mean, you have the traditional collar and elbow lock up, and no one really getting any advantage. And it was a lot of mat wrestling. I mean, Balor gets this side headlock on Cole and grounds him, and they're in the center of the ring, and they're sort of just working that particular hold for quite a while. It didn't feel like an eternity, but it was definitely, as far as timing wise goes, they were just, withholding from showing all their big moves. Like, they didn't even really aim to hit any of their finishers to try and get this over and done with straight away. And I think if they'd gone to sudden death last week, they probably, that sense of desperation would have shown quite a lot more, because, they'd done the 60-minute match. And if they had to try and go for, the first pin would win, well, yeah, I mean, like, you would have seen a lot more of that action last week. But look, they've had a week off. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's just a sort of process of feeling each other out, because, yeah, I mean, I don't recall that many times that they've had matches in WWE together. I think this may only be their second one-on-one confrontation, if I could be wrong. But then when I was looking into it some more, the basic holds that they were doing, I was just sort of thinking, I think it may have even been Jim Ross. Jim Ross was like, whenever, I mean, again, another fantastic commentator, but I think he was saying, when, from a storytelling point of view as a commentator, he would have always sort of pushed the fact that, they're doing they've got the sound fundamental basics down pat. And, like, if you have that sort of stuff going on, then yeah, I mean, you're going to be a very sound and efficient wrestler. I don't know like what the parlance would be, but it just sort of made me think of that, just seeing like how measured and how basic it was at the beginning.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I mean, I was observing that Cole was getting out wrestled by Balor, and he was looking a bit more confident. But then I was a bit confused because commentary like, oh yeah, they're wrestling to a stalemate, and I was like, oh okay, well like
yeah, well that didn't make sense because Finn was really outshining him a lot, especially just with the basic holds, and I don't know if it's someone on their microphone, someone in their headgear telling them to say that, but it just anything that they were saying on them, just like, are they watching the same match as we are?
Yeah, I think sometimes. Look, I mean, commentary is not perfect. They have to do it on the fly, but yeah, like I didn't really see it like how they did. But I mean, they've got the monitors, so they should see exactly what the audience are seeing. So that was just a minor sort of thing that I didn't really like. But look, I mean, the match continued, and I mean, they did the whole chain wrestling thing where they, like I think it's chain wrestling at least. I'm no expert on this. You're gonna have to correct me if I'm wrong, but they're exchanging holds basically, and it was just counter after counter. And yeah, at that point I was like, yeah, there are no strikes going on. But then all of a sudden, you see Cole getting a basement drop kick, and then he starts taking control with strikes, and then he snaps that Ushigoroshi out, and I'm like, oh, I freaking love whenever he does that. Like it's just so devastating when he does it.
Well, they're taking an old school approach, starting off slow and slowly building. And when you're doing a match like this, where the championship is on the line, I think it's a good way to start it. Especially if you're a new fan now, it can be boring as hell. But if you look at some of the greatest matches at all time, they start off like that. Counter to counter. The test of strength. Even though that wasn't in this match. But, stuff like that. And that's what you need to build a match like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, look, I am a fan of it when they do this sort of thing. It doesn't look noteworthy, but yeah, it's just showing these guys are masters of the craft.
Exactly.
After the Ushigoroshi, he goes for a pin attempt. He only gets a 2 count, but then it goes to a commercial break. Now, again, this is something that I'm not really a fan of. I hate commercial breaks breaking up, especially a match like this, a championship match. What's your take on that?
I wish they do. Well, sorry, they do. They replicate what AEW does with the picture-in-picture. Now, obviously, because one's TNT and I think they're on. Are they on USA or they're
USA?
on,
yeah, USA Network.
Yeah, like unfortunately, it wouldn't happen here in Australia because we get it on Foxtel. But they could. Surely there'd be a way to do a picture-in-picture because then you wouldn't miss much. Because when you have a match like this, that's like balls out and it's got to be, like it's meant to be the match that you came to watch. Having a commercial break. It ruins it. It really does. And for that, they have to really think of ways to sort of keep the audience going. Because, like, you're right. Like, the moment the question comes, it's like, oh, it's starting to get good. And then all of a sudden, they're back from commercial. And it's like they're starting all over again.
It takes you out of it, And I know that, well, I mean, with what we saw, I mean, they got some stuff in there. I mean, you start seeing Cole getting a bit more control in this. But yeah, I mean, you're engaged in the match on a number of levels. So, you're watching the performers in the ring. You're taking note of the crowd and how the crowd are reacting. You've also got commentary going. And now this is very different than if you were to go attend a live wrestling event. But the way that you observe and I guess like, your experience of the match is really on those factors. So for it to go into a commercial break and then, you don't have commentary, it just sort of feels weird and it distracts you from what's going on. And I just sort of thought, well, this being the main championship match, it kind of, it really did detract from the overall quality. I had a look at some of the stuff that was happening there. I mean, you sort of get bit more happening for Cole. I mean, he gets a couple of neck breakers in there and he starts working on the neck. So, a bit heelish, I guess, like to start targeting a body part and then just continually working on that.
I don't understand why people always think that that's a heel thing. I just, maybe because, like, if I was a wrestler, I would, I think I would be fantastic as a heel. And even when going back to my days of doing MMA, I've always was taught to focus on one part of the body to disable them.
Okay. I guess, like if you... Sorry, man.
Yeah, that's all right.
If you look at when, say, like Triple H was, a heel, or, anyone from Evolution, Randy Orton, Ric Flair, Triple H, even Batista, they would sort of do that. They would focus on a body part. Whereas, your traditional faces would, they just power up. They do a lot of power moves, or they'd be taking a lot more of those hits and then selling those injuries or selling those holds and what have you, because if you do that to the baby face, the crowd's just going to get more behind the baby face. So yeah, that was my take on it. I was just like, yeah, okay, so like, it's kind of I mean, again, character wise, it's sticking to the character, and you can't really fault him for that. But then I guess well, in terms of the tug of war of control, the control sort of gets back into Balor's realm. I mean, he manages to avoid a sunset flip into the pinning predicament. I guess that's what it is. But yeah, I mean, like, so he rolls out of it and then he gets a basement drop kick, and then the commercial finishes, and then you get to the middle of the match, and so it's not a short match. So I think the way that they've positioned it, with the way that they've kept things slow and measured, they're really looking to draw this out and give a bout worth watching. I think what I was starting to enjoy about this was, I think I do like their chemistry. I want to see more matchups between them. Like, historically, have you noticed any other time other than in NXT? Have you noticed them ever match up prior to being in WWE?
No. Like, I was going to say maybe in Japan. No, because Adam Cole came in straight after Finn went to NXT, because there was the doco that was on YouTube, that was on, I think, BBC, and you can find it on YouTube, and they're going through, and I'm pretty sure Cole, he was either on his way in and they kind of crossed paths, but they never in the same ring together, or Finn had already gone straight into NXT, and then Cole went straight into Bullet Club. I can't quite remember, because I wasn't really following the Bullet Club at that point. It wasn't until AJ Styles actually went to the Bullet Club and I went, oh yeah, I'm gonna go watch some New Japan. But it's interesting because you're right, they've got this really great chemistry, and whether it's because they had that connection through the Bullet Club, or whether they got because they worked in the Indies, I don't know. But it's just how I'd love to see them have a match would be AJ, Cole, Balor, and then number 4 would probably be Ricochet. That would be the dream match I'd love to see, and that would be what I would say would be a good match for them. Be obviously for a championship ladder match.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be pretty good.
Yeah, but moving on.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I do really dig the chemistry, and this is probably why the week break was good, because it would have allowed them time to set up a layout for this particular match, rather than them having to, sort of maybe even do something on the fly, like if they were to have gone to sudden death immediately after the Iron Man match. I think that after this first commercial break, this is where things started picking up a lot more. And I mean, you start seeing things like, sort of like near misses. So there's this sequence that I told you about. So, Cole tries for the last shot, but then that gets blocked by Balor, and then, Balor attempts a double stomp and misses it. Cole misses his super kick. Balor gets half of a sling blade. Again, I love the fact that he doesn't hit that sling blade really well. But then, he charges towards Cole, and then Cole ends up nailing him with a Shining Wizard. That was a really, really cool sort of display there. Again, it just speaks to the chemistry of the two. They seem to know each other so well, but they definitely just work with each other so well. And I think in terms of having a match like this, it made sense for them to have it, because I think, with regards to Ciampa and Gargano, even though they've had really great matches with both Balor and Cole, they've probably got something else that they've got to resolve, storyline wise between the two of them.
What's interesting to note around this point as well, you start to notice, I don't know if you noticed this with this one, but this is something that I noticed, and this is just me being a fan for years and years and years. Balor had already started not to gas, but he was sweating quite a lot compared to Cole. Like even at the end of the match, Cole was like nowhere near as sweaty as what Finn was. But Finn, what was it, like 15 minutes in, and he's just wow.
I think you said this last week as well. You were saying that he's got more experience than the guys, at least in WWE, and even prior to that. So you were thinking that maybe it's an age thing. Maybe that's why he's showing
I've got a
those
feeling
signs.
it's an age thing, but it was really noticeable in this match. But also at this point as well, you look at if you take a look at Finn's back, his back is got a red stripe on the back, and obviously that's from the ropes. But just before they go for the second commercial break, he's got. I watched it again, and I still cannot pinpoint where this mark happened. But he's got another. I first thought it was blood, but it just turned out to be a scratch on his chest. Don't know how it happened.
Yeah, I remember saying that.
So I've watched it twice, and I just can't pinpoint where it happened. Was it from a slap that Cole may have given him? Was it from from when he went into the turnbuckle? I don't know, but that looked more painful than when it was on his back. And I just want to know, what the hell was that?
I don't know. Maybe it was a chop. Maybe a chop, sort of like, maybe he caught a bit of nail and then it ended up just grazing him. But yeah, it did look like
what. So you're saying that Cole has got a nail problem, that he loves to grow his nails out and then paints them down?
No, I'm not saying that, you idiot. The hell, like, mate. I don't even know why you would think that I would draw that conclusion.
Adam Cole, if you're listening, Tim thinks that you grow your nails too long. So
maybe he does the Asian thing that some of us do, where we grow the pinky nail long.
Oh man, don't get me started on that. I did that once, and yeah, that didn't end up well.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I don't know how he even got onto his nails, but look, I mean, it happens. I'm sure you've seen that there have been some wrestling matches where, after a few chops, like, people start getting the red welts on their chest, and sometimes even blood.
Not like that. That looked like it was a deep cut, because at the start I thought that was blood, and when they panned up to him. I'm trying to remember which part was it, but I think when they went up to the ropes, and you can see it looked like like really red, but it just looks so painful, even with the close up. All
right, well, do you want to ask him if he's okay?
Oh, I'll send him a tweet later and see if he's all right.
I'm sure he's fine.
Yeah, I'm sure he's gonna answer it. So
this bit though, like, so. We're getting towards the end of the middle of the match, and this is just before. So again, we're going to get to this in a sec, but they did take a second commercial break, which, yes, it puzzles me. But just before they took the second commercial break, how great was that sequence? So they're outside. So Balor's knocked Cole outside, and Cole's rolled out. Balor hits a baseball slide drop kick, and Cole's still outside. Then he goes out, stomps on him. Cole somehow makes his way towards the timekeeper's table next to the ring bell, and then he's sitting down, and then Balor goes over to the opposite side, and he lines up, wants to do the your favorite, the John Woo drop kick. But as he charges towards Cole, he eats a super kick. I just love, again, similar to his Ushigoroshi, I love how Cole uses these as counters.
Yeah, that was a good moment. That was a good moment. I don't know if you've heard it, but you can hear someone go, "Oh shit!" Like,
really, that made it in.
I heard it, like, and I was just like, "Was that Balor?" Or
Are you sure it wasn't just you saying "Oh shit"?
No. I clearly heard it. I mean, I am deaf in one ear, so maybe I may have been hearing something else. But because I'm sitting there and my eyes just went whoa. Didn't see that coming because I just thought he was going to move out of the way, and then all of a sudden it was like a superhero. I'm like, oh man.
Well, he's just so good at hitting that super kick as a counter. I mean, there was my cousin sent me something, and this was one. I think it might have been North American Championship match, so it would have been Cole versus Ricochet.
Is this the one where Ricochet jumped from the ropes and then he nails him? Like it was kind of like
he backflips off the ropes.
So it was like the version of like when Shawn Michaels hit Shelton Benjamin, but this was in midair. Yeah. Man, I remember watching it live and I cringed because I thought at the start Ricochet was dead.
Okay, look, I didn't think he was dead, but just the timing that he does, and then also, like he cops a lot of flack from people like Orton with regards to the thigh slaps, but just the timing. He hits the super kick, but you also hear the slap at the same time. It's just like, oh, this is perfect. It's like right when you would think that he would actually connect. Like he's seriously he is the master of, well, I think it's a big call to say that, but he is definitely a master of the super kick.
I'd say he's the master of the modern super kick now. So
there's no tuning up the band with anyone who uses it now.
Because the argument could be, oh yeah, the Young Bucks. I'm just going, who do you think really summed it up when they were all together? It was Cole. Cole was the one who was really doing it a lot. So anyone that says the Young Bucks, all right, fair enough. If you want to believe that, you want to do it. But for me, it's always been Cole that's been really good at doing that.
All right, so yeah, we get into the second commercial break. So this is another thing. So not only has the match been broken up once by a commercial break, but they end up doing it a second time. So it just felt like this is the main championship of the brand. To have a second one, it just sort of felt like the match had been given short shrift, like as if the importance of it had lessened. They'd taken away from the significance of this match by doing this. So again, like earlier we were talking about how with the first commercial break, it really takes you out of that experience as a viewer. And, that's how I felt after I watched it. Obviously we didn't get to watch this match together. What was your feeling on a second commercial break?
It's inevitable. I mean, you got to remember that they got to make money, and that's the only way they make money is through selling the commercials. Personally, they shouldn't have stopped, or they could have, they could have done the whole WCW thing, because, and this is always comes back to the commentary team whenever you have a good commentary team, and I just felt like we don't have that right now to have this kind of thing where they hype it up like, oh, we're about to go to commercial break. You don't make sure you keep coming, you come back because you don't want to miss 1 second of action. There isn't that sort of urgency in this, and they're trying to make it sound like that, but you need to have that urgency when they know they're going to go to commercial, and they just don't.
Yeah,
because like you look at like Tony Schiavone, who is renowned for doing that. Doesn't matter if he's in AEW, doesn't matter if he's WCW, MLW, doesn't matter. If he knows his commercial break, he will hype it up to the max, and you want to go stay and watch it, and it just does not have that feel.
Well, even with this, I mean, they're at the commercial break and you can't tell like what's being said, but you're sort of watching and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess the ref is now counting them because they're outside. Cole makes it in first, and then Balor sort of dives in. And it's like, well, in the skilled hands of, or the skilled voice of someone like Morrow, if he wasn't interrupted by a commercial, you would be feeling that sense of urgency. And yeah, you don't have that here when you're dealing with ads. They did have some good stuff happening here. I mean, again, like, just speaking to the chemistry of the two, they're exchanging blows in the middle of the ring, and the pace started quickening. So Cole hits a pump kick on Balor, and then Balor quickly hits the Pele kick in response. Goes for a 1916, but it's reversed by Cole into an Ushigoroshi. He goes for a pin and only gets a 10 count. But then when the match comes back in, then, like you're hitting that final stretch, and yeah, there's just a lot of stuff going on here, and it looks great. I mean, you get Cole going for his Panama Sunrise. Balor sort of just stops him at the corner with an enziguri. He goes for a coup de grace, but he lands ugly. So then Cole super kicks him to the knee again. Like for me, like it looks like a heel sort of move, and then he immediately applies the figure four on Balor. So it's like that whole ring psychology thing where and like you were saying in MMA, target a weakness. So Cole's doing that, it's really in line with his character, but it's also showing, well, in terms of the story of the match, he's doing what he can to weaken his opponent and try to win the match. You end up seeing Balor selling the injury, so like, he's sort of, struggling with his knee and what have you, he gingerly climbs to the top rope and he manages to hit the coup de grace, but because he's suffered damage to the knee, he doesn't pin immediately, and when he does get a pin, he only gets a 2 count. But this was a part which I really, really loved, and you hear it in a lot of shows, but Barrett's like, no way, and then I forgot the name of the other guy on commentary, but even he yells it out. He's like, no one has ever kicked out of the coup de grace, and Barrett's like, the coup de grace has beaten everyone.
Like, he sold it so well in his facial expressions, and when they did that, I actually had to really think, like, has anyone actually kicked out? And honestly, I can't think of anybody. So
that's something we're going to have to follow up on one day.
Yeah, but it's when you got a moment like that, really makes the match. And then we had another one later on.
Look, I laughed at it when I heard it, but then I also kind of liked it at the same time because, it might seem like a throwaway line, but it is something that when they're talking about the characters, it kind of builds them up even more. Like, it makes them sound mythical, like how you would expect to view them if you're like let's say a kid who's just starting to watch wrestling. You hear it in AEW. You hear that no one's ever kicked out of the one-winged angel, for example, and it's not an uncommon thing to hear. But yeah, like it just made me laugh. But like you said, like it was really good sign of life from the commentary that they're really trying to get into it, and then they're really they're selling as well, and like it sort of gives me a bit of hope that they keep Barrett on, because I think Barrett would be, like you said, I think he'd be really good there. But yeah, like entering into the final stretch, you have a lot of stuff going on, and it looks great, with one exception, which I'm going to get to. But you start seeing a lot more of the finishers starting to be employed. So Cole manages to get a figure four, but Balor ends up getting an inside cradle. Cole gets a super kick, sets up for the last shot, and then he nails it, but then he only gets a 2 count. He goes up to the top rope and tries for a Panama Sunrise, and when he lands, and just as he's about to hit it's a destroyer, right?
The move is the destroyer, but everyone seems to call it the Canadian destroyer because Petey Williams was pretty much famous for. I don't know if he created it, but he definitely was the first one to really getting exposure with TNA, and people just call it the Canadian destroyer. It's the destroyer, regardless. So let's just keep it calling it destroyer. I mean, what does Cole call it? The Tequila Sunrise or some crap?
No, Panama
Sunrise.
Dude, were you here? I've said it a few times.
No. I always get it wrong, so that's why I'm just like, yeah. But,
you seem a bit distracted.
No, I'm not being distracted. I don't know, because like when you got a move that's famous and it's got one way of saying it, I only pay attention to that. That I'm always going to remember that. It's like,
all right. Well, after he tries to go for that, like, that's basically the last time you even get a finisher sort of attempt from Cole.
Yeah.
But yeah, eventually, like he gets caught, and then Balor tries to convert that into a 1916, but then Cole backs him up into a corner. They're then like at some point after a few exchanges, they're trying to get to the top rope, and then they start fighting for control. Eventually, Balor gets control. He gets a few strikes in, and he sets up and does the 1916 from the top. He ends up nailing it, which we're going to talk about in just a second.
I'm literally about to say, you're hitting it. Okay, yep.
He pins Cole, gets the 3 count. Finn Balor is the new NXT champion, and he is now 2-time champ. What was your reaction to that finish?
The reaction that he won it, or the reaction of just the way it was executed?
With the way that it was executed.
It was poor. But the thing, and I said this to you off camera, the guys were pretty tired. You know, like that you can physically see they were exhausted. You know, so I mean I could totally understand that. You know, like it of course was going to look, you know, the way it looked, but surely they could have done something to make it a little bit more effective. Like if it looked weak, you know, then maybe just do a, you know, quickly, you know, like Cole be laid down, and then, you know, do a moonsault or something just to make it, you know,
just to make it pop a bit more.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe because look, it didn't look right. I mean, it just looked like Cole fell, and Balor was trying to hold him.
Yeah.
It didn't look like
I got that feeling.
Well, yeah, even the way he was coming off the top, Cole just looked like he was flat. It didn't have that elevation that Balor is able to have if he has his feet planted.
Well, one of the things that they could have been doing as well, whether this was what they were trying to do, is because, like, obviously Balor's knee was already completely stuffed at that point. You know, maybe they're just trying to do that, but it was just like kind of like a miscommunication. Like, say, all right, if you kick to do this, we'll do that, and then it was just like by the time they got up to do the move, it just, yeah, you know, one got quicker than the other, and bang, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if he'd hit it and then followed it up with the coup de grace, that probably would have looked better, because he can hit that really well. You know, like you said, maybe storytelling wise, you know, he's selling the injured knee, you know, or maybe the fact that they've had a pretty exhausting bout, like, so maybe it's the fatigue that's set in. I mean, we talked about this last week with regards to the Iron Man match, that, you know, there are signs where they're really selling fatigue. So it could be something like that, like we were talking about last week. You know, we were picking that Balor was going to win this, and we were totally right on the money. So that made me feel good about myself being able to predict this, even though you know, anyone could have really predicted it. But, you know, basically after seeing this, you know, so this is basically a two-parter. So after seeing this, did you think that this was cool?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No. But I'm not going to say it's bad. I just reckon it was average. And it's. I feel really bad saying that, because I love Finn Balor, I love Adam Cole. It's just I didn't get a lot of popping moments in this match, and both of these wrestlers, not superstars, wrestlers, right? I refuse to call wrestlers superstars. I don't like that. They are known for, you know, always giving pops, and just to not have a match where they do a lot of pops, it just, I don't know, it just feels very flat for me. And
wow, okay. Yeah. I look, I didn't mind it. I think it just barely misses out on getting a 3 out of 5 from me. I think that, again, you know, this match only came about, you know, because it's circumstance. You know, Karrion Kross is out on injury, so yeah, we had to have something like this. The fact that they split it across 2 nights, I don't think it really successfully delivered. Like, it felt like this match was given short shrift. Like it was cram session, and they were like, okay, we need to do this. Okay, let's just go out there and do what we can. And so I think that's why some of the presentation was a bit off. The fact that it was interrupted by 2 commercial breaks, I think, also affected it for me. Even though, like, you know, physically these guys are incredible with what they do, and if this is a last minute match, it's so far above average, you know. But yeah, I mean, like,
but by all means,
it gets into that realm of it being good, but it's not great. And I think you told me that, you know, as far as last minute matches have gone, Finn Balor once had an excellent last-minute matchup against AJ Styles.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, my gosh. Payback 2017.
Was it Payback or TLC?
No, I think it was Payback.
All right.
Because now I can't remember who the original opponent was for Finn Balor, but they got an injury and they said, who do you want to face? And AJ put his hand up and I said, well, it's like Bullet Club leader versus Bullet Club leader. Why don't we do it? And they just, oh man, it was such a good match. And then the fact that they ended it with the too sweet at the end, that still gives me goosebumps, man. Like it's just, yeah.
Well, as speaking of the too sweet, well, after the match, Balor's in the back and he's being congratulated by everyone, and then who should approach him but Cole?
Yeah, I was about
Cole
to say
goes
that,
up,
and they do it as well.
Yeah, I mean, Cole's the one who approaches him. He offers his hand for a handshake. Balor reciprocates. He says something like, you're the better man or something like that. Like it's sort of cut out, but then they do the too sweet gesture to each other, and that was a really cool moment. And I just thought okay, that was worth it. That was worth watching. To see something like that.
If we add that to the match. Had they done that in the ring, I'd probably say this would have been cool for me.
But why would they do that as in like after immediately after?
Exactly. Like, they get up and then,
good point.
This is how I would have booked it. So Balor's got the championship. He's doing his showboating, and then Adam Cole gets right in his face, offers a handshake and said, "You're the better man." And then instead of doing the handshake, they go, "The too sweet," and bang. That's how I would have booked it.
Yeah, I mean, we end up getting and I've mentioned this to you before we started recording this, but look, again, they had to do all of this last minute, and it was definitely a good call for them to have like as epic a matchup as they could do. So having a 60-minute match with limited interruptions. And using, as they call them, the 4 cornerstones of NXT.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really good. Like, that was probably one of the best booking calls they could have done, in this shorter time frame.
Well, I think calling them the cornerstones of NXT is a massive compliment, because when I think of NXT, the first few people that come up to mind are obviously Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Shinsuke Nakamura, and one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Samoa Joe. And then now that we're adding Gargano, Ciampa, Cole, Balor again. That's a massive compliment. It's like the other three are jumping out of the shadows of the former. And then these guys are the cornerstone. You know what I mean? It's a massive compliment.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I mean they worked so hard with all this, and even though it was really hard to get behind it, you can't get invested in this as a feud. There was very little build up. I mean, yeah, you could argue that there was some build up with Balor announcing that back when Cole was champ, that he was coming for the title. But yeah, I mean, you got very few skirmishes between the two of them. Balor was off dealing with other people.
This could build a bigger feud now.
Oh yeah,
and
I think look. It's a good thing that there was that WWE are able to, NXT, they're able to pivot, and this was about as effective a pivot as they could do for these wrestlers. And they've done it before. Last year Balor was meant to wrestle Gargano at War Games, but Gargano was injured, so they wrote him off in storyline as well so that he could recover.
Doesn't that just suck? Like every time you have this like potential big feud that's about to happen, someone gets injured, and it's I don't want to be that conspiracy theorist, but I'm just going to throw this spanner in the works. This is a constant curse in NXT. Whenever there's going to be a big feud with like two massively over / technical wrestlers, they have one match. Or they'll, the guy will get injured like this, like Killer Cross. What's he called now? Karrion Kross. He had a great match with Keith Lee, and then all of a sudden, bang, injured.
Yeah, well, in terms of this though, you were saying sorry, I rudely interrupted. But
No, I was done.
no. You had a point. You were saying that with the way that WWE have ended up putting the strap on. That sounds so wrong. Putting the championship on Balor.
May I remind you, this is a family show.
Phrasing. But yes, putting the championship belt on Balor. Who do you think that they could be setting up a long-term feud for him?
And you said it when we were talking off camera, and I hope they do this. I reckon if they do Balor champion, AJ champion, or something else, and let's say Cole gets moved up to the bigger ranks, have those three as the champion, and have a feud, and have like a three-way
triple threat
feud. Yeah, that would be interesting. But for the long run, for the time being, I gotta say Ciampa. I think with all the publicity he's gotten with these little Twitter bitch fest with Orton, whether that's real or not, that's up for debate. But I think because of all that heat that he received from that, I think that would be the logical choice, because his name is constantly getting brought up. I mean, we've talked about him quite a few times on this cast. I just reckon that would be the logical choice.
I don't want Balor to be just a transitional champion.
Oh hell no!
I'd argue that Keith Lee, Aleister Black, I'd argue that both of them were just transitional champions. They had such short championship runs with, not really noteworthy defenses.
Keith, I'd say yes. Aleister, it's a bit tough for me because I kind of turned off NXT at that point when he was champion. So yeah, I don't know. That one I can't really comment on that. But yeah, for Keith Lee, definitely that was pretty accurate on that one.
Yeah, see, look, it was very disappointing. I know that they wanted Keith Lee to go to the main roster because he was, he was the breakout star of last year. But yeah, giving him such a short championship run, and I know
that's criminal. That's criminal.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. Like, I mean, he was North American champ for a while, which was good. But yeah, like for him to be the face of NXT, that would have been even better. And I know, I think he could have stood to have more of that time developing, in that position as champ. And if he just stayed in NXT, but look, I mean that's happened. Let's but look, I'm going to stick with saying that I think that this match is short of a 3 out of 5. I like some of the storyline stuff that happened after. So, like Cole and Balor doing the too sweet. And then even the way that Cole was, when he got interviewed later on, he said he was disappointed, but he wasn't raging. He'd accepted it. And yeah, he actually said that he has respect for Finn Balor and that, the better man tonight was Finn Balor. So I was like, yeah, okay, this is kind of cool. I think long term, this could be a sign that, maybe Adam Cole could be turning face. Because, yeah, even as he left the building, I mean, later on in the night, Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish came out for a match. And, yeah, so Cole wasn't there for them. So I think, if you were to look into it, and, you could, you could be clutching at straws here, but you could see that, they're not nearly as united right now. They're sort of drifting. So I think that, that presents a very exciting opportunity. And yeah, I hope that Balor gets some decent title defenses, that he's not just holding on to this for Cross.
Yeah.
If they end up opening up the borders, I would really love to see it if he could take on some of the people from NXT UK. So Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate, Walter.
Walter.
They teased Walter earlier in the year, and that it was a shame that they couldn't move on that. That would have been awesome.
Now that guy is a beast. Oh man, he scares me so much. Just that look and that frame of his. Jeez, I'd love to see that him take on Balor. No, you know what? Screw it. Stuff it. I'm gonna say Balor and Walter. I'll put that. That'll be the next turtle for him.
That'd be so
reckon.
Awesome. Yeah. But also, this is another thing. I just want to make this point before we wrap this up. But I already said before, I felt like this title matchup got short shrift. Do you think that they really screwed the pooch by putting it first in the night? Do you reckon that they really should have just had it as the main event for the night?
They wanted ratings, and that's the only way you're going to get ratings. But 100%, it should have been the main event. There was no way this was going to be taken seriously. You know, like I think I've said it the wrong way, but it was never going to be taken the right direction if it was going to be at the start. It should have been at by all means, it should have been at the end, but. The only way they were going to get that demographic up is by putting it at the start, because unfortunately people and fans just want to get what they want straight away. They don't want to wait, and that's the way that the wrestling business is right now. They're booking just so they can get the numbers up.
Yeah, I mean, like, storyline wise, the stuff that was in the middle of the match was pretty poor. I mean, it didn't really advance anything that I cared about. I don't really rate a lot of the other performers they had, but this match and then the cage match at the end were both pretty good quality. But I think that if they'd reversed it and had the cage match at the start, that probably could have gotten a crowd hot for it. Well, not that there is a crowd, but it could have gotten a viewer at home really excited for what was to come. And, I mean, they've already had people waiting a week for the outcome of this title match. They could have just gotten them to wait until the end of the episode and then given the match its due, and also had limited commercial breaks, because they can do that. So, yeah, that's my final point on it.
I feel like WWE should listen to us and just get us to book their shows,
Yeah, but... Yeah, look, I'm sure every other fan thinks that way too.
I don't think that way, mate. I know.
Okay, look, you've got a lot more knowledge in this than I do, but no, I do enjoy.
I'm only
kidding.
I'm only kidding, because if we were to do that, I guarantee we probably sink the ship on that one. And on that note, that is the end of this episode of What If It's Cool. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, RadioPublic, iTunes, Castbox, and make sure to find us on Facebook at What If It's Cool Podcast, Twitter at What If It's Cool, and on Instagram at What If It's Cool Podcast. And keep that support going. Until next time, guys, we'll see you on the next one.
Before you go, man, I was just thinking, I noticed that you were a bit distracted earlier. Is it because it's been a big day for you today, with it being Guy Ritchie's birthday?
Are you serious? Is it actually his birthday?
Oh, don't pretend, man. I know you were probably just having a bit of a fangirl day today over the fact that it's his birthday.
Oh, man. There is never going to be a podcast where we don't mention his... I was going to swear that. I'm going to keep the PJ. Name. Is there?
I was so glad that you said, yeah, let's record tonight. I'm like, oh, look at the date. Oh, this is perfect.
And on that note, we'll catch you on the next one, guys.
Now we can wrap up.
Dickweed. All right.
See you, bro. Peace.